Welcome back, everybody. It's been a while since we done the last podcast, but we're getting back into it now that hunting season's back in Pennsylvania. Today we have Kyle Allen from ANF Custom Calls here with us, and really we're just going to shoot the shit on any type of hunting. I know he's a big turkey hunter, and I'm sure he's a big deer hunter, so we'll get right into that. So Kyle, like, you want to just start off and kind of explain, growing up hunting and kind of what gave you the root system into what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. I came from a pretty big hunting family. My great grandpa hunted way back in I think it was like the 30s or 40s, and it sort of just continued on from there. With my grandpa, my dad, and then me and my brothers. The earliest I remember going hunting was back in the early 90s. I think I was only like 4 years old, and that was back when there was hundreds of deer in the woods you'd see in a day. And I remember building a campfire. There were so many deer, we would build a campfire because we were hunting the national forest. And we would just sit around the campfire, and there would be deer running past. And it was in doe season, and so everyone would get their doe. And that was my first experience hunting. And I was like, that's pretty fun. That was, and so then it stemmed from there. I got my hunter safety course. There was no mentor hunting when I grew up. You had to be 12 to get your permit and then get your junior license. So from there, the first, really hunt I was on, I think I remember shooting a doe in the early season, my first year when I was 12. But I remember the most fun was that fall turkey season. I was on the bus, and I remember seeing a flock of turkeys out in the field, and I was like, "Hey, Dad, I saw these turkeys on this road," and it turned out it was our relatives who owned the property. So they let us go in there and hunt, and I ended up getting my first bird that year. And I think my grandpa and my older brother both got turkeys that day too. So it was just sort of a fun experience, with everyone being out there all at once. And then that was my first experience really turkey hunting, and I got one very first day. So I was pretty much hooked after that. And that's sort of how I grew up. That was my growing up experience hunting. Developing after that, I think, that spring I killed one when I was 12. My grandpa took me out before school, and I killed one. My dad had to work. He wasn't able to go, but I didn't start bear hunting. I'm a pretty avid bear hunter in PA too. I didn't start bear hunting until I was in college. With high school sports, I played football, basketball, baseball, so I wasn't able to get out, bear hunt. But then after, that honestly, it was probably the most exhilarating thing to hunt. Turkey hunting is probably my favorite, but the adrenaline rush you get in bear season when you see a bear, there's nothing that tops that, in my opinion.
I'll agree with the bear thing. I shot my first bear, I think it was probably about 2 or 3 years ago. I shot my first bear with a bow, and then I shot my buck, and then I shot my fall turkey, and I got my Grand Slam eventually that year. But I'll tell you right now, bear hunting is probably like the rush is a big thing. I think the whole driving aspect, because that's what our group does. We average at least 2 or 3 bears a year, like hunting wise. So that's our big thing. I think that I could say that we're pretty decent at bear hunt, but we hunt totally different woods than what you hunt. We hunt farm field, ag fields, and we know where the bears are at because of garbage and all that other stuff. Like big woods hunting is totally different aspect, and there's no comparison whatsoever compared to our kind of bear hunting compared to yours is totally different. So
yeah, it is. I mean, that's us too. We do a lot of driving, but if the snow's on, usually we try to get a guy on a truck. Everyone tries to scatter out and get on them. But usually you're same with you, like you guys, we usually get 1 or 2 a year. I think since groups back in 2000, and I think they started as a group putting on drives back in like 2001 or somewhere around there. 98. It was 98. Sorry. The group has killed, like, I think it's around 50, maybe a little bit over 50 since then. And we actually started getting guys. We actually had to split off now into 2 groups because there was just, we started getting over the roster size. So we were like, this isn't, we got to split off now. And that's sort of what we do now.
I think that's a key factor for us. I think the big things, I think we're down we're like 10 or 12. Like, it's not a big group. And I feel like that's like our favorite size because the bigger you get, the more confusing it gets. And then you got a cluster. So
you usually get guys that are friends of friends. And then when they get, they go stand next to the guys that know what's going on, and then it gets frustrating for the guys that know what's going on. And that was sort of what was happening.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And like I was never big into bear hunting, and I've gone a couple times with like Cody's group and everyone else in our group. And you know, I can see why you guys think bear's the most fun. I mean, to me, I really enjoyed hanging out with the whole group of guys and getting, you know, just hanging out with friends and family the whole time. And you know, when you're deer and turkey hunting, that's kind of like a seldom individual type of hunting style. Where bear, if
Well, no, I might disagree with you on that. When I say I think bears, like when because you don't usually see bears, so when you see one and you're able to kill it, that's what I mean. I think turkey hunting is the most fun. And your point about being a solo activity, we all take a week vacation to fall turkey hunt together every year, and then we all take a week in the spring to be at the camp together. You know, and usually we're always hunting together. Like usually it's in tandem. You know, we don't usually go by ourselves that week. You know, we'll hunt as a partner. You know, have a guy set up behind, try to call him from behind the person sitting in front. So that's why I think turkey hunting, to me, that makes turkey hunting the most fun, is that you can have just as much fun sitting 50 yards behind the guy calling, and when he shoots, you know, you have the same level of excitement as the person who pulled the trigger. That's what's special.
for sure.
That's what sets turkey hunting apart, I think.
I agree with the whole calling aspect, but I usually don't go by myself that much unless I have I'm off like tomorrow, like Friday, for example, I'm off, and I know a lot of people are going to be off on a Friday. So I'll probably end up, but I know a couple buddies that took off to just go with me, for instance. So yeah, I agree with like what you're saying. Like, I think the big thing is, I think since we started filming hunts, the more that I could care less to go by myself. It's tough to self film. And I mean, I've done it now. Probably I self filmed bear kill. I self filmed like deer kills now, but it's not as fun. You're just like, I don't know, you just don't get pumped up by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you get a certain level of excitement, but like when you're able to celebrate with someone, it does make it so much more fun and memorable too. Because then, you know, when you run into your buddy, you know that story's going to come up at some point. You know, you're just sitting around having a few beers up at hunting camp. That those stories always come back up, and it's a good drop of dopamine, you know, for your brain.
So you said you're big into fall turkey hunting, and I've seen pictures on your Instagram and stuff like that. You guys use dogs. How does that work?
Back in 2018, you know, I was interested in getting one of these dogs. I couldn't get one. It's an Appalachian turkey dog. The guy who bred my dog, his name's Carol Gathright. Yeah, he just passed away a couple years ago, but he had created this bloodline over like 45 or 50 years. And he said he bred Plot Hound, Walker Hound, Gordon Setter, English Setter, Irish Setter, and English Pointer, all into this dog to get the traits he wants. So basically, he'll hunt around me for like, you know, 100 yards, 150 yards. If he catches the scent of something interesting, he'll range out, go out probably 200 yards. And if it's a turkey, then if it's a flock of turkeys, he'll take off, and he'll be, you know, I'll look at the GPS and he'll be 400 or 500 yards away. And at that point, I know he doesn't run deer. He might chase a squirrel or something, you know, if he sees it, but it's not going to do what this thing's doing. So, you know, usually he'll be so far out of ear reach. Sometimes I'll have to just pay attention on the GPS, and I'll see him making circles. And that's usually where the turkeys broke up at. And what he's doing is he's doing a circle, trying to find any tracks of a runner that didn't fly. And then if he, you know, you can usually tell on the GPS, he'll take that track, and then you'll hear him barking, and he'll come back to this break site. And once I get to the break site, he'll usually stay there. He won't come back his track. He'll stay there where he broke him up. And then, you know, we'll set up, and I have this woman, her name's Glenda Green. She makes a lot of custom bags and stuff for like box calls and stuff. Well, I had her make me a waterproof insulated like bag for Lloyd to sit in. So he sits in between my legs in this zip up bag that's insulated. And then I have a camo burlap I throw over my legs. Cause when the turkeys get in about 50 yards, he can smell them, and, you know, he wants to chase them again, but he really does. He knows, like, if I say lap, he'll go right to my lap. He'll get in that bag, and then he'll sit there until the gun goes off. And then he starts tumbling around in that bag until I can get him unzipped. But it's pretty fun. Yeah. He'll break them up, sit still, and pounce on them when they're flopping, and that's it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's crazy.
you don't want to run down through the woods with a loaded gun trying to break turkeys up, and that's what fall hunting's always been. It's run around, break them up, and now the dog has totally, changed the game and made it a lot more enjoyable.
Now that's legal in PA. So like when did they pass that law? Like, have they always had that law that you can use a dog for fall turkey?
It came into play, I want to say 2006 or 2009, somewhere in between there, I think. So it's been over 10 years
2000.
since legal.
Now, is there like quite a bit of turkey dog hunters out there, at least in PA? Because like you're the first guy I've ever met that runs dogs on turkeys.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. It's kind of a niche, group. There's a group on Facebook. I think it's called We Love Turkeys, I think is the name of the Facebook group or something like that. But there is a good group of guys that still want to do this, and that's that was sort of how it originated. Fall hunting was, think a turkey's an upland bird, so back in the day, back in the early 1900s, they were hunting with dogs.
Yeah, that's something
they didn't run around, sneaking through the woods. They were using whatever they had because they were eating it for food.
I know. Like raising up, like whenever I was growing up, we'd do. It's wild to think about now, but we'd actually do like deer drives for turkeys, and that's how we'd split them up. Like we'd have like 3 people and 3 people. We'd find the tracks in the snow where they're heading, and we cut them off, and then line them up, and just drive them to each other. And then after they split up, then we'd sit down and call.
Yeah.
So the dog thing's cool because I run rabbit dogs and I run like beagle dogs, like coyote dogs, and all that stuff. I never thought about using a dog for freaking turkeys till I saw a picture. And I was like, that's pretty awesome, honestly.
I guess it's the same concept as duck hunting. I mean, you're training a dog to sit still. I mean, that's the main thing. But then you do have the factor of, luckily my dog, he'll cold trail turkeys. He doesn't only have like the bird nose where he has to wind them. He'll get on a scent trail and take them 400 or 500 yards before he'll find them.
So like training that dog for turkeys, did you get like tame turkeys to train it, or how'd you train it to get turkeys?
A lot of gas, a lot of miles. Because I was living in Pittsburgh whenever I was working in Pittsburgh, and when I got him, I had a house in Pittsburgh. So every weekend I'd go up to the National Forest and we'd ride around. And he was only 12 weeks old. Like when I started really taking him up there, which. It was like in July, I waited till the poults and stuff wouldn't be caught by him. I didn't want him, or if I saw a big, if I saw a long beard or something, I'd let him out because I know he's not going to catch that. But yeah, we'd see him cross the road, and then I'd let the turkeys get away, and then I would, put him on the scent that I wanted him to be on. And so that's kind of how he figured out, hey, this is what I'm supposed to be running. I mean, it was genetics too, don't get me wrong, but I was up there probably every weekend putting them on 2-hour drives. They're putting them on turkeys, and then as September came around, I sat there with them more. We'd break a flock up, because the poults could fly then, so we'd break the flock up and we'd sit there and I'd have a call and I'd call them in and get them close. And probably the part of the reason why he wants to chase them, it's probably my fault because I used to open the bag up, and when they were 20-30 yards away, I'd let him chase them again. So that's probably why he wants to chase them when they're in close, because he thinks I'm going to let him do that. But no, I spent a lot of time, with him, and he's turned out to be a good turkey dog. I think we got 5 last year with him. So it was a good week.
Heck yeah. That's awesome. Now, do you do professional turkey calling, don't you? Or do you do calling contests?
I don't know if I would call it professional calling, but yeah, I do contests. That's kind of how I got started in the making calls, because back I was like 13 or 14. I went to my first calling contest and I won. So I was like, oh, this is fun. I won a turkey vest down at Cabela's. It's the same one I hunt with today. It's the same turkey vest. And so then I went up through the amateur division. I won a contest, but I was buying Woodhaven calls. And, when you're at a contest, you got to sound the best there. You got to sound like the real thing. And if the call that you're buying doesn't work for you, you just spent sometimes $10 to $15, and I was like, well, this sucks. So I got online and I was trying to figure out what can I do to build my own. And luckily there was a lot of resources for it at the time. It was like in 2013, 2014. And I bought a little jig from his name's Thad. He's in Ohio. He makes the presses and the jigs. Well, I just started off on a little hand jig, and I started making my own calls and figuring out, what worked best for me. Well, you're going to burn through 150 calls trying to figure out how to even make them, and then let alone what's going to work for you. So, it was a lot of time, trial and error. But then, once I figured it out, there were some guys that were like, hey, make me a couple calls. And then they thought they were good. Then they were told their friends, and then it kind of like snowballed. And then I had a couple buddies who were getting them. And then my buddy Zach and Colton, those two guys, they really spreaded the word down in Southwest PA. They spread the word down there. And then I was like, well, there's a lot of money going to be start flying around here. I better make this into a business. So I started my company in 2019, and here we are today.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I tried your calls out. At first I was like, man, I sound like a dying turkey. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, this is rough. This is just my part. And I was like, well, if they're anything like Denny Galvis's calls, because I use Denny Galvis's calls, and he's not legit, probably 5 or 10 miles away from my house. I was like, if they're anything like Denny Galvis's calls, you just gotta wear them in. So I kept on wearing them in. I was like, these things sound legit now. Like I just didn't wear them in good enough at first, and I was like, they're just any good call that you have. I'm gonna say that right now. I feel like any good call you have, you just gotta wear them in.
Yeah, I should actually put that on the packaging, because I stretch them pretty tight. And when
there's nothing wrong with it. Like I like wearing in for my mouth personally. That was the nice thing I liked about it too.
Yeah, because I've noticed it myself. I've made calls and I'm like, I didn't really like that. I'd just make it off the press, and then I'd put it to the side. But then there were other calls where I said, oh, that sounds okay, and then I played with it a while. Probably called on it for 20 minutes, and then it was like, bam! It was like totally different call, and then it stays like that. Like once the
100%.
Yep,
100%. That's what that wing, and then the other one broke in the combo cut. I think it was. I got off you. It wore in a little bit faster than the bat wing, but the bat wing I loved. Like I'm not the word.
That's going to be the hardest call to call with, because it's got the least amount of latex on the top. You're going to have the least amount of control over it. So. Yeah,
well, playing with Denny Galvis's calls, man, I'm telling you right now, those are probably the toughest calls I ever ran in my entire life, and I figured them out. It took me 5 years to figure out his calls. I'm telling you right now, it took forever. But
they do airflow, because he's got wrinkles in his latex. So I bought for a Jake Yelp in one of the contests, because I didn't have a good Jake Yelp with one of the ones I made, and so I used his in the contest. I think out of 20 I scored like a 19 or 19 and a half. But that's what Chad Claycomb I think uses a lot, is the Galvis calls for his Jake Yelp and stuff.
I mean, he makes good calls, but like you said, it's totally different. And they're top deepest.
That's what I started doing with his calls, and then doing that same airflow through mine, I think works even better. I thought I heard Matt Van Sice was talking about it after not this Grand Nationals, but the one before. I heard him say something about once I started practicing or using Denny's calls, I got my calls figured out. And I think what he meant by that was he was calling the same way he was Denny's on his own. That was my interpretation. I don't know if that's true, but that's kind of what I thought. So I started doing it, and I started sounding, I thought, better once I started doing that.
I'll agree with that 100%. Like I thought about doing the calling contest. I'm not gonna lie to you. So like a long time ago, I did it. Like you were saying, I went to Cabela's, and I took second out of like 10 kids, and I never went to a calling contest my entire life. My parents just took me down. I was like 12 years old. I was in elementary school, and they're like, "There's a calling contest in Harrisburg," and all my buddies are like, "Why don't you go do it? You call all the time." And they're like, "Just go try it." And I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing. So then I called so Denny Galvis it was Rick Powers. You probably don't know who he is, but Denny Galvis and him used to go against each other all the time because they're local guys. And they just go back, forth. And he won a couple championships too. And Denny and him would go back and forth all the time. And Rick Powers was my mom's best friend's husband. So I was like, what do I do here? He's like, you're gonna have to do a kiki run, you're gonna have to do this, you're gonna have to do that. Like he showed me all the things that I'm gonna have to do. And I was like, he's like, just go give it crap. He's like, you're not gonna learn until you go do one. I did one, it took second, and I never went again. I just with sports and stuff in high school and being busy all the time, I just never did it because then I went to college and I was like, I regret it now. Like I'm 25 years old, and they're like Rick, the Rick he was talking to me the other night. He's like, why don't you just try doing it again? I was like, I'm 25 years old. I don't know, man. I feel like I sound good. Like I'm a good caller. It's not like I'm terrible, but I'm not Matt Van Sice good. That's just how it is. And
I think as long as if you practice long enough, and if you practice like the whole year and not just around turkey season, I think you'd be surprised at how much better you could get as a caller, just from having the control over the call with your tongue and your airflow. That's I feel like I sound better at the end of the turkey season than I do, right when I pick the call up. For these contests, all the contests happen in January through March, and then I feel like if I went to a contest in June, I feel like I'd score so much better.
Yeah, and I will agree with that. Like this year, I started the kid was born in December, so right in the beginning of December, I started calling because that's the way that I'd calm her down. I'd run a turkey call and she'd just calm the heck down whenever she was crying. So like I was like, all right, this is pretty awesome. I could just do this all the time. So I just started running a turkey call all the time with her.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that those turkey competitions are kind of cool. I mean, that's just another way to get out there at like postseason or preseason, whatever you want to call it. But like, I don't know, is that kind of like a dying thing? Like not like a national level, but like in a regional level? Like, is there still a lot of calling competitions, or how's that work?
I wouldn't say a lot. I'd say a moderate amount. I mean, I think the biggest issue I think they're having right now is just getting judges or getting good judges. Because what happens is if you have some, decent judges or semi-judges, semi-okay judges, they're, guys that are good aren't going to start coming to these contests because, okay, I'll give you a perfect example. I beat Matt Van Sice in a contest in 2016 or 2017. Do I think I'm a better caller than Matt? No. So, I mean, that was a prime example of how it's just depending on where you call within the calling order, because it's a blind contest, depending on where you call in the calling order, have such an impact on your score. Because if you call at the beginning, they might not mark you as good because they want to save room for someone later. But if you were the best caller, but they scored you a little bit lower to afford, to allot for that, you're going to get screwed, So I think that's kind of the crux of the contest thing right now is getting the judges, because guys aren't going to show up to them. I noticed they don't have them at like sporting shows anymore. I feel like you'd have a better turnout and a better crowd if you had them, like they have a big expo in Ohio, and they didn't have the contest there, the Ohio State. They had it, a different weekend. I thought they should have had it the same place at the same time.
Right. That would make sense to me. And from what you just said, it sounds like there's no like standardized rating system either to where it's consistent through everyone.
That's good. I mean, that's hard to do with humans being the judge. I mean, everyone's going to have their one hen maybe that they're listening for, and that's sort of the issue. Is some of the judges just want to hear one hen, but the contest it's a turkey calling contest. Not every hen sounds the same. I'm sure you guys have heard a hen in the woods and said, man, that guy sounds like shit on that call. And then, 30 seconds or, a minute later, it comes walking up and it's a hen and it's doing this honky sound and yelp, and, it didn't even sound like a turkey, but here it is, a turkey. So that's where it's the human ear that's judging it.
That happens a lot. Like last year, I thought, because I hunt like pressured areas, there's no doubt about it. And because it's like farm country that's open to like other people obviously hunt it. I'm sitting there and I was like, this guy's legit walking in on us. I said, what the heck's he doing? And then I started calling like crap. I was like acting like a dying chicken to make sure like, hey, bud, I'm working this bird. You can like bail. Next thing you know, this freaking boss hen just, yeah. Like sounds like trash. I'm like, what the heck? And then she walked right by me at 5 yards. took the long beard the other way, and I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" I thought the whole entire time this is some guy coming in. This legit hen takes this long beard away from me. I'm like, "Wow."
Yeah,
So
that's happened to me many times that now if I hear it, I'll stop and listen for a while. And then usually you can tell by the cadence. I mean, I feel like I don't listen for the tone. It's, if it's got a good cadence, I'll sit tight and wait, because I've heard guys that don't sound good, but their cadence was good. So down, you're 100 yards down in the woods and it sounds like a turkey.
yeah, like, so you got a bird in West Virginia. Do you want to talk about that hunt?
I actually whiffed in West Virginia.
Really?
I killed one in Ohio, but down in West Virginia, yeah, I can tell you about that one. I was down there with some buddies, and right off the bat, actually, let me back up. The night before, we put 2 birds to bed, or so we thought. There was 2 longbeards that gobbled, so me and the buddy went up in there and knew about where they were. So we set up along this logging road in this like little meadow, that connected these 2 ridges. I had never been up in there. I just sort of used the topo to look at it, but turns out there was like this little meadow. I said, this is gonna be perfect. And like, we didn't have any decoy or anything. We're sitting there, and here there was like 4 longbeards gobbling, and one pitches all the way down the hill, but 3 of them pitched down right on the logging road we're on. So I'm like, man, this is gonna be perfect. We knew there were some other guys up in there because we saw the headlamps, but I started calling, and the birds started coming in, and all of a sudden we hear some guy calling like 40 yards from us, right to our left. And I'm like, well, this isn't good. He snuck up through the autumn olive, and I'm sure he probably thought I was a hen. He come up, so where the birds were going to come out, he was going to be shooting sort of back towards us. So I was like, this isn't worth getting shot over. So, especially if he missed and they started flying my way, that wouldn't have been good. So I just started yelling, hey, there's 2 hunters over here, don't shoot. Well, the turkeys didn't know what was going on, and they started walking up the hill, and they walked away, and the guy he never did come over and talk to us or anything, but we waited there like 15 minutes, and those birds gobbled. So we hunted them the rest of the morning till about like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and closest we had them was about 40 yards, but we couldn't get a setup where we could, get close enough for them to want to come in. They had some hens with them at that point, so they weren't coming in.
Yeah.
We left there, split up, and I went to another spot, climbed this mountain, and I found some scratchings up on top. So I made a call. I thought I heard one, and so I called again, and he gobbled again. I'm like, okay. So I was looking for a tree to sit down at, because he was probably only 150 yards away. I sat down and made another call. He gobbled. And then I sat there for a while, made a call. He didn't gobble. Made another call. He didn't gobble. I said, well, he's probably got hens with him. He's probably working away. I'm going to, get on the other side of the ridge and walk the ridge out and try to find another bird. Well, as I'm doing that, I come around this little knob and I find all this scratchings, and I'm like, man, this looks like a sweet spot. And they were fresh, like they had roosted there the night before, and they flew down, and that's where they were feeding. So I sat there for a while, just like cluck and purr, some soft calling. I waited there like 20 minutes, and I said, I'm getting up. I'm going to hunt the rest of the morning out the ridge till quitting time. As soon as I'm getting up, I look down on the bench. Like, I got up real slow, the bench below me, and I see a Jake feeding. And I'm like, shit. And it's looking right at me. But it didn't catch me move. And then it went back down to feeding. So I sat back down, and I did some cluck and purr and a little yelp. And the Jake started yelping. And then I hear, and I said, oh, here he comes. I figured that was the longbeard I heard gobble. And here he comes right up over the hill. I can hear him walking in the leaves. And he steps out at like 30 yards in the wide open. And I was like, man, this is it. And I shoot. And he takes off and running and flying. And I was like, how the hell did I miss him? So I really don't know how I missed him. I don't know if
do you use a red dot or you use a bead?
That I have it's an 1187, but it's got the slug gun sights that sit up off the barrel. And I don't think that I've ever been able to really get a good headrest and be able to aim down those when I'm hunting. I've had that gun forever, since I was like 14, so I just bought a new 20 gauge. I just bought a new Stoker 20 gauge that actually my Ohio hunt I just had. I was hunting behind my in-laws' house, and I was on my lunch break for work because I get to work from home, and I took an early lunch break between 11 and noon, and I killed it. I was checking my phone as I'm hunting this thing, and it was 11:53 when I shot it, and I had to jump at noon. So it was like I hunt. That's the like I haven't killed a private ground bird in a couple years. I killed one down the road a couple years ago, but like I go all over God's creation hunting public land, and then I kill one right across the street from a house.
Well, that's hunting. I guess we could talk about our experience in West Virginia too. Well, mine personally, we hunted 2 days, and then it was a washout on Saturday and Sunday. So we went out. We went Wednesday night. We left. We went out there. My brother and them were hunting there, and they heard tons of birds, but they shut up as soon as they hit the ground. So we're guessing there was pressure before, like with hunters. And yeah, the first morning I got late. Me personally, I got there late, and we're walking. There's a truck at the gate. In PA, I don't like doing it, but like down there, I have nowhere else to go. And every gate, there's a truck there. I was like, screw it. I'm just going to go in and try hunting. There's only one other vehicle, so it's probably just one other guy. So we go back in there, and there's birds, we get 150 yards from birds in the roost. And we're getting ready to set up, and it's dark. And we're getting ready to sit down, and there's probably about 3 or 4 in a group gobbling. And I sit down and do a couple tree yelps. Kaboom. Thud. A guy shot one right out of the roost, right in front of us.
He probably had a rifle.
I don't know, but it was hilarious. I know. I couldn't believe it. We heard a thud, and then you heard the shot, and then you heard the turkey fall and hit the ground. I'm like, are they allowed to do it in West Virginia? I don't know the rules. I was like, I don't know. I said, screw it. And believe it or not, the birds kept on gobbling. So I don't know if the guy just sat there and waited till they like flew down. I don't know what happened. So then they flew down, they shut up. So I'm guessing the guy went and grabbed his turkey. And then randomly another bird, I was calling to those other ones because they hit the ground. I didn't know if the guy he obviously got it, but I just didn't know where it was at 100%. And I was like, all right, This other bird starts gobbling. And next thing I know, it's coming in. And my buddy's like, I think we need to move and get in this bubble. I was like, buddy, I think he's right there. He's like, no, I'm telling you, man. And he couldn't tell from where he was sitting at on the ridge because he's on the other backside of the ridge, and I was on the other side of it.
Yeah, he couldn't hear the same.
And I was like, I'm telling you, man, it's probably about 300 yards and it's coming. He's like, no, we got to go. I was like, all right, we'll just go. We get up, and believe it or not, the thing legit jumps up and flies away. I was like, oh my God. So then that was it. And then midday, we got one goblin hammering by himself. So we get in on that one, and I'm calling in. Believe it or not, 3 guys come in, and they just walk right on top of us. And I tried to tell them they don't. And people out there, they're so ignorant out there in West Virginia. I can't just say my personal experience first time I've ever been out there. They don't even talk to you after they mess up your hunt. They just legit turn and run away from you the whole other way. And I'm like, why couldn't you just be like man and talk to me about it and say, hey, I messed up? So then we got to the truck, and we talked to the different guys, and they're like, yeah, we got screwed up too by something. And this other guy's from Pennsylvania. And every truck at the gate was from Pennsylvania. I was like, everybody must just think to come to West Virginia the week before and just take vacation, I guess. I said, I don't know. I guess you learn something every time you go down there. And then the next day I walked 11.5 miles. I seen 7 bears and heard one gobbler gobbling his head off by himself. I called him. He shut up. I was like, whatever.
They had hens with him, and he took them right away as soon as you started calling.
Yeah, and that's basically what I think, that they're hen up birds, call shot of crap where we were at because everybody and their brother were there, and they're probably just spooky as crap at that time because, all the pressure. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it was early down there when I was down there too. There was a lot of hens still with gobblers. And that's how my weekend in PA was too this past weekend. It was just, every bird I was on had a hen. I had 2 guys come in behind me on e-bikes, and they on a box. I have them in front of me, just down over this knob, and I'm like, man, I didn't know. Well, I shouldn't say I was gonna kill it, but I mean, I was getting close to killing it. And I hear behind me, I hear a box call. I'm like, shoot, someone's behind me. I said, well, this might be good because they might pull it up over to them. Then all of a sudden, I hear a bunch of talking. Well, Gaswell guy pulls up beside those guys, and they start having a conversation. And 2 deer go running down right down to where the gobbler's at.
He shot the heck up. Yep.
Yeah, I could hear him spitting and drumming, but as soon as all that happened, he was gone. So I walked out to the road, and I was gonna, go to another side of the mountain. And those guys are like, "Oh shoot, were you on anything?" And I said, "Yeah, I had one right there." And they're like, "We didn't mean to screw you up." They were like, "Oh, we heard all kinds of gobbling over here, and then we saw your truck." But this was like 10 o'clock, So I don't. They came in. They were like, "Yeah, there's boot tracks all over here." I'm like, "Well, I've been through here all morning."
And that's the thing about like me personally, and even like on private ground where I'm at. If I see a vehicle there, man, I go somewhere else. I just feel like it's just ignorant for me to go walking and jump in front of somebody else calling. You know what I'm saying? That's just my personal preference. I just don't like doing it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's different than deer. So like, I think a lot what happens right now, especially with turkey hunting getting popular on social media. A lot of people that deer hunt public land are now turkey hunting public land, and it's not the same because deer don't gobble. So you don't have everyone run into one spot. It's like when you're trout fishing and one guy catches a fish in the creek and then everyone goes and throws in the same hole. It's the same concept with turkey hunting, but now you have guns instead of fishing poles. So like, that's why I don't like to do it, because I don't shot. Because I've gotten shot at up there. The guy parked behind me in the morning, and then I was hunting up on top, and when I came down over the hill, he was on the Gaswell road past where the turkey was. So I set up, back towards where my vehicle was from the turkey. And when it came up on the road, he shot first down towards me. I didn't know he didn't see me, and I didn't see him because there was like a little bend in the road, and he killed the turkey. All the BBs came flying and hit the tree beside me. So it was kind of, ever since then, I try to get away from people.
Yep. And that's, I don't know, it's tough. That's tough.
It's just especially tough where we hunt, up here, up in the northern area, all these forestry roads are all open, and it's even worse in deer season.
Yeah. Yep. And then the thing too is like a lot of roads have the gate open, but the road's actually closed, and people that aren't from the area, they'll go back it and they'll screw your hunt up. Unbeknownst to them, they didn't know the road was closed because they didn't get the paper from the forestry service, that shows you what gates are open. But I've had that happen too, where I park out front at the gate, but it's open, and then they drive through, and the turkey's coming up the road, but they didn't know that you couldn't drive down it.
So basically, in your knowledge in turkey hunting, I'll just ask you, what's your number one thing you think that people just don't do? Like, I think personally, preseason scouting is the number one thing about to even get a better chance to harvest a turkey, I think personally. But that's just my opinion. But what do you think?
That's a good question. I don't think people know a lot about turkey hunting. I think a lot of times people go turkey hunting and try it a couple times and then maybe quit because it wasn't fun, just because they watch too many TV shows where they sit, in a blind or on the edge of a field where there's some decoys out there, and then they should just sit there and wait for the turkeys to come to them. Whereas you should go to the turkey. That's how I've always hunted, where if you're just going to sit there and wait for a bird from 400 yards to come to you, it's more than likely not going to happen. You can't hear turkeys where you're at daybreak. You need to make a move somewhere. And I think that could probably be the number one thing, in my opinion, where people aren't as aggressive as they should be. To go find the turkey, to go hunt the turkey. It's not like deer hunting is totally different. Like, back to that archery season, I think you get a lot of archery hunters maybe that, and I don't really know this for certain, but that could be, it's a theory that, they're just kind of waiting for the turkey to come to them, and then they'll try it a few times and it's not fun to them. And then they'll go back to whatever else they were doing in the spring.
Now, I think the big thing in PA, and this is just my personal opinion of what I've seen where I'm at, the first 2 weeks get pounded to crap. And then the second week's crappier because everybody and their brother has everything call shy and spooked to crap after the first week, I think personally. They don't hear any gobbles the second week, and then they give up after the second week because they're not hearing the gobbles that they were hearing. I honestly like the last three weeks of season, last 2 or 3 weeks of season, honestly.
Yeah. I have a week vacation set here for the third week. I don't take the last 5-6 years. I haven't even hunted because just like back to the point, I don't like hunting with a bunch of guys around. I'll go hunt the third week and there's call shy birds and maybe not as many left as there was the previous 2 weeks, but it's more enjoyable to go out there and know you're by yourself the majority of the time.
I agree with that 100%. And yeah, go the first 2 weeks. That's what I'm going to tell everybody. First 2 weeks are the best 2 weeks.
I love seeing the comments on Facebook that the season doesn't come in early enough. Those are the best.
And this is the thing. I used to be that guy when I was younger, when I was a kid. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I was that kid. This sucks. They're not gobbling as much. But like, as I got older, I'm like, you know what? As you realize, honestly, PA is one of the better states with bird numbers now. I'm not saying they're great by no means. They're never going to be great because we have too many predators, in just my personal opinion. But they're better than most states because we've already seen it now with Tennessee and other states that are jumping ship like we are and making it later so the birds can breed. Yeah. But the only problem about PA is, and this is just another opinion of mine, is right now, imagine if they would have opened the season early like they would have. We have snow right now and a bunch of other factors. The eggs are probably not doing well right now. With all the rain and that snow and stuff we're having right now, a lot of these nests, the early nests, are probably not going to make it. And that's just facts.
I think they can have like 2 to 3 clutches. Like, if the first 2 fail, I think they can still have like a third or even a fourth clutch of eggs. So, which it kind of confuses me as to why they let hunters run around the woods later in the season all day. You know, if you think about it, if you're trying to protect the integrity of the flock, you'd want less pressure later in the year. I guess they're saying guys give up like what you're saying. So maybe that's the logic behind why they let the other hunters hunt all day.
I'm not gonna lie to you, like I don't hear a lot of birds later in the year. I'm not gonna lie to you, like I don't hear them. But once you do find that bird, it's gonna be hot and it's gonna be the best.
Yeah, he's alone. He doesn't have a hen with him. They're all on net. Yeah, and you can't hear too. That's the thing too. If you have a hard time hearing and you can't walk, you know, the late season might not be for you because you're only going to hear 150, 200 yards the majority of the time between all the songbirds singing right off the bat and the foliage. You know, you're not able to hear a mile or half a mile down through the valley.
That's a huge thing. And last year was a big concept for me. If you hear a bird later in the season, you might as well just sit down right where you're at because it's probably only about 200 yards at most, 300 yards.
Sounds way further than what it is, but it's only, it's right. And if you've got a good spot to kill it where you're at, you might as well stay there because it might be thicker down where he's coming through.
Yep. I agree with that 100% too. And it's just overlooked a lot by a lot of people. They don't realize that. Now, you don't use decoys, you said, correct?
I won't say I won't, but if I'm hunting, like the first time I hunted with Chad, you'll see me use a decoy. And I thought maybe because that was the first time I spring hunted with him, I didn't know if it'd help keep the turkey's attention there. But I really don't like to when I'm hunting hardwoods, just because it's like majority of the time I'm trying to get in as close as I can to the turkey. So I don't want to walk another 30 yards out there, set the decoy up. And then I also don't want the decoy behind me if someone's going to come walking in behind me and then shoot me. So I leave the decoy alone if I'm hunting like hardwoods. But like out here in Ohio, there was a couple times where I had to, the only permission I have is to hunt the field. Well, what am I going to do if I can only hunt the field and I can't hunt the woods? I'm going to sit in the first jagger bush I can find along the field and have a decoy out, because if a turkey looks out in the field and I'm calling out here and there's no turkey.
My personal preference off of that situation too is I'll use a decoy the first week, maybe wait. And I don't even know if I'm gonna use one Friday or Saturday this week, because all it takes is one yahoo, call one in, shoot over top of that decoy, and those birds, as soon as they see a decoy, they're running the other way. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Yep, you're right. Because I just had a buddy tell me that story where he's like, I don't know what happened. The turkeys saw the decoy and they ran him. That's probably what happened. Shot at them.
All it takes is a youth season. Some guy takes his boy out there. His boy just bodies the crap out of her, peppers him a little tiny bit, and he's never going to come to a decoy that year. Next year, he'll forget about it, but not this year. He's going to be smart.
Dude, I'm telling you what, Kyle, like, I absolutely despise hunting field birds. Like, up here in the big woods, dude, there's nothing that beats that.
Yeah.
Every little hump, they could pop up at any second. In a field, you see them coming from 1,000 yards away. Like, it's no fun. to me.
Yep. I agree. It's a lot easier to kill a field bird too, having done it. I grew up in Western PA, it was kind of like, hilly farm country, and, hunting there compared to, the big woods, just, it's two totally different things, like what you're saying. They can surprise you they could come up over the hill at any point in time. Whereas, you're going to see them out in the field coming in the whole time.
Yep. I don't know. I just killed my bird yesterday, right? 2 days ago, Monday. And like that was the first gobble we heard this whole PA season. We heard them hammering in a couple spots and before the season, and then come Saturday, just with the weather and stuff, no birds wanted to gobble at all.
Yeah.
And then we were just taking our loop, hitting every gas pad we had that we could pull into, and we just called, and finally on Monday, right the last spot, we saw them up on the ridge, and we pulled off, and I called one time just to see if they were hot, and they were hot, so I had to walk my fat ass straight up the hill. But I was just like, and I told Taylor, and I talked to Cody about this all the time, I try to analyze every single aspect of a hunt, so that just makes me overthink things.
Mm-hmm.
So I just told my wife, I said, we're walking straight up this hill, getting on the same elevation, and we're calling one time. It worked.
Yep.
Came into 40 yards and blasted a Jake.
You know what I found works, like what you're saying? Go with the first thing that comes to your mind and in your gut. Go with it. Don't second guess, because usually do the first thing, and more often than not, it's right, because it's your instinct telling you to do it. If you've hunted long enough, what that bird or what that animal is going to do.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Even new hunters, just you gotta do what he said. Like for new people who are getting into hunting too, because there's probably some people that listen to like this stuff too that are like, "What do I do?" Honestly, your mistakes are what's going to make you a better hunter, and I'll tell everybody that. Anybody that's hunted for a long enough time has made plenty of mistakes. They just don't want to admit it, and that's the truth.
Yeah. You ever hear someone beating their chest saying that they're the greatest time, then they criticizing everyone online or whatever, they're full of it, because the only way they learned to get where they are is to have failed at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise they'd have 180-inch buck every year. They'd tag out in 2 days in turkey season. It is what it is.
So talking about tagging out, you said in the past 9 years you've killed 4 PA Grand Slams.
Well, if I kill a spring gobbler in PA, I'll have 4 in 9 years. Yep. And
so like for big woods hunting bucks, we'll just talk about that for a quick second for you. What is the number one thing that you think the best, like, I'm not going to tell you to tell your whole entire secret, but what's the number one thing that gets overlooked for big woods hunting bucks?
I don't know if it gets overlooked, because the people that really want to do it seem like they're figuring it out and they're doing it. I think that's the biggest thing, is just having the gumption to go do it, because you just got to, what you have to do is find the sign, go in the rut and see where the deer are during the rut. You might have to take a year off and scout, that year during the rut and figure it out, and then throw a stand up somewhere.
All right. That's all you guys, you don't have to go into detail, man. I know how it is. So.
And as far as gun season, because I don't kill a deer every year in bow season. I mean, I have, probably 4 or 5 up there, but, in gun season, we'll put on like 2-3 man drives that you wouldn't think to do, not running through brush, but, my grandpa and my dad will come up through the brush or not the brush, but just like sort of some open woods for my 2 brothers and I, and we'll just sit on the escape routes. And if you learn the escape routes, or figure out what the escape routes would be, that's how you're going to kill a lot of buck. And gun
There
season.
we go. Well, that's all you got to talk about. I know you don't want to go into detail, which I don't blame people for not going into detail. So that's good enough right there, man.
I'll tell you what, like I moved up here, 3 years ago, and the first year I hunted down at Cody's farm, and I'm just like, all right, I'm wasting a lot of gas here. Like there's bucks up here. I just need to do it. And last year I committed fully, and it's like you take, I don't know, 1 day every week and go summer scout and just keep doing that throughout the season and stuff. Like, yeah, you got to be willing to eat a tag, but you're gonna have some of the best hunting you're ever gonna have.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Summer scouting can be tough though, because the deer that are there aren't going to necessarily be where they're at during the fall, and that's why I'm saying, like, during the fall, and that week in the fall, when we take the week to fall turkey hunt, if we get our turkeys, then we'll go deer hunting, and by that time we'll have trounced all through the woods and found a scrape line here, rub line here, or seen a monster buck with a doe, and we're like, oh well, I know that hot doe's in here, I'm going to throw a stand in here. And you know how many times we've maybe not necessarily killed them, but had close calls just from information from the turkey hunters. So just getting in the woods in the fall, I think, don't be afraid to, especially in the big woods, to bump deer, because they're not going to go far.
Bump and dump. Bump and dump.
I tell you what, dude, there's not much terrain. There's no, we have no oak trees. Like, if you find a little 40-acre patch of oak trees, you're the luckiest son of a gun alive.
And if there are rounded, everyone knows about them.
Yeah, right. So, and I started looking at like areas and I do a lot of driving on all these forestry roads, and I mark every single time I see someone park somewhere, and I kind of guess which direction they went. And then that's where I started putting my cameras and stuff like that. And that really helped. And I noticed this shed season, these deer at least the deer I'm hunting are not migrating as far as we think. Leaf off and stuff like that. Now, I'm sure some do, but the sheds I'm finding of these bucks are within 500 yards of my camera. Yep. They're not going crazily far.
They have food there at the end of the winter, wherever they're staying. They're going to stay there. Right. And that year, usually the fresh shoots start coming off anyway, so they have a lot of browse to eat.
Right. And my opinion, the rut up here was pretty crappy this past season. We had a lot of really hot days. Now, I don't think it was postponed. I don't ever believe that. I think a lot of it happened during the night, though. Yeah. And I had a lot of decreased activity during the rut, but it could be A, it's all at night, or B, I'm just not in the exact right area.
I'm going to go with the area. I'm just saying that because that's just my personal opinion. Because
all the trail cameras had all these bucks coming in at right before dawn.
Then you must just be a little bit far off. They're probably, if you go backtrack or try to find the other way where they're at, you're going to find out where they're at probably.
There was a buck doe on October 19th. I took 2 days of vacation because that time of year, usually if you find a scrape line, it's a good time of year to hunt a scrape line there in mid-October. And I found a spot right by the road that gets overlooked because you can see the parking lot from my tree stand, but it's a deer trail, like it's a funnel for whatever reason, and I see deer all day and they're right there. But I went there early, and this, it was probably a 4.5-year-old buck. It would have probably been one of the nicest buck I ever killed. It came in chasing a doe on October 19th, grunting. So it must have been a doe that was in heat early. I missed it. I shot at it like 30, 35 yards, and there was a beech tree. I'm colorblind, so it's like 35 yards, and I shot, and I guess I didn't see the beech tree, and I stuck it it was 8-9 feet up in this beech tree, and so I had to climb up there with climbing sticks there later in the season and get it down.
Oh, that sucks. My best week, I think, hands down, my best week in PA, and this is just my personal play, like where I'm at, and I think it's all certain areas. I'm just saying this in general too. So on my farm, there's this one part of the farm that is just does to galore. Or first week, does everywhere, like the whole entire season.
The first week in November, you're saying there's all the does there? I'm
saying October. I'm just saying the first day of archery season till, like you said, the end of October, first week in November. the bucks start coming in, and then the second week of November is just rut. Like it's just rut everywhere. And like the buck I shot this year was on a farm, probably I'd say easily 4 or 5 miles away from my farm. And the guy sent me pictures of it. He's like, "How'd you kill this buck? Blah blah blah. It was on my farm all year long." I was like, I had the does, man. Every year the does just bring in bucks that I have no clue about, and I just get lucky every year, and it's just a good spot. It's basically what I do. So
my house here, we own right along this creek, and we have 15 acres, but it runs like pretty narrow, but there's and it's like the perfect funnel. And like I can't, like trail camera pictures, like I can't pattern a deer and say I'm going to kill it on this date. You just have to be in the woods, because the day it comes through, he's probably not coming back through. So I'll get 20 different buck on camera, only like 1 or 2 times, and that's it. So I've learned here, you just got to be in the woods at the right time.
Yeah.
On the right.
And the way I look at it too, like, okay, yeah, that you're not getting any bucks on your trail camera, but how many bucks are walking behind your trail camera or beside it?
Trail cameras can be the biggest downside to a hunter, I think. I've learned that out here just from having cameras out. I didn't start hunting, until a certain time, until I started seeing deer. Well, the last couple of years, I just said, oh, what? I'm going out when I would normally go out. And like what you're saying, deer were walking all around where that camera would have been.
I think this year my goal is for hunting. I'm still thinking about I might just use a recurve, and I might just go public land. And if I don't kill a deer, I don't kill a deer. I'm thinking I'm just gonna do it this year.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool to kill some animals with a longbow. I have a ton of that Osage orange here, and I want to cut one down and make a bow out of something on here on my land here. That'd be kind of fun, I think.
You want to sell a couple of those Osage oranges?
If I cut one down, I'll be because they're pretty big. So like I'd
be interested. I'd drive out.
It's only going to be a fad for a couple years and then drop back down again.
Yeah, it's not easy hunting. I'll tell you that.
It isn't. You have to, most of the time, if you don't have a group of guys, it really sucks getting a deer out of the woods by yourself. That's what makes us pretty successful as a group. This year we hunted solo. Every one of us went out on the first day of rifle, and we stacked them up. We killed 5 buck in opening weekend, and we were all hunting solo. But we knew where we were going. We had the manpower to get it out, so we went to some crazy off-the-wall places to go get a deer.
And then you just quarter up, pack it up. Pack it up.
We only one of them got quartered up. All the other ones we had a cart, but it wasn't places that you were only going to do with 2 guys either. Yeah, we had to have the manpower to do it.
Yeah, I definitely had a couple calls like that. My brother hunts bigger woods, and Alex, another guy in our group, hunts bigger woods. I got a lot of calls while I'm hunting in the rut in the trees saying, "Hey, can you come help me drag this deer out?" I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!" And it sucks because they're good bucks. Alex is like 150, and then Garrett's is like 135-inch big woods buck, and they're like, "I want to drag it out because I want to skin it out good, and I want to get it mounted." I'm like, "Gosh darn!" And then it's like 5 miles back in. I'm like, "This sucks so bad."
Yeah, I would have told him to quarter it up. Just do a good job of skinning it.
Yeah, right. If you saw my brother, I'll tell you this right now. He probably didn't have a knife, 1. 2, he didn't have a pen, surprisingly.
He didn't have a twist tie.
Everything. He's the biggest goon that you'd ever see in your entire life.
I tell you what, though, the days that you don't bring everything are the days you kill.
I know.
I purposely leave something stupid behind.
Yep. I agree. That there is a truth to that, because I always leave either the pen, the twist tie, or the knife. One of them will always be left behind, and I'll kill something.
Yeah, that's one thing about him. He always leaves something behind, and he's always calling me, "Got one." I'm like, "Gosh darn it," because I hunt the farm. Because I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'll hunt big woods, but like I tell everybody, it's gonna be once or 3 times, and I'm gonna go to like where I know there's deer at, because I'm just lazy about it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I like the farm.
Yeah. I mean, after getting a taste of having like my own place here now, like I get why people only want to do that. It's convenient. It is. It's like and you don't have to fight over you know, you don't have the anxiety of
I
fighting
think the
over.
big thing,
like,
yeah, the big thing that I think about me is I put the time in with like food plots and I do all this other extra bull crap. So like that's why I think that I just do the farm too. It's because it's like I put in a lot of money into food plots and stupid stuff like that. This year, my coolest thing I did this year, and I'll tell anybody to try it, and you should try it on your property, just a little tiny thing. Take a kiddie pool, man. All right, dig a hole in the ground with the size of a kiddie pool, fill it up with water, man. I had more bears and everything that you could think of just hit that water hole, dude. It makes no sense whatsoever.
I have one of those big, long steel, or I don't know if it's aluminum or what, but it's one of those old cattle trough things. I wonder if I could dig that. That'd probably be a good thing to put in there.
I'm telling you, man, and then put that in the ground and then make sure it's like flush with the ground. All right, is what I got. I was watching YouTube videos on it. I tried it last year in PA and I didn't. I had to call the game commission. I'm like, is this considered baiting? Because like I didn't know like it's legit attracting animals to my spot. So is this like considered baiting? Because I don't want to get arrested for it. They're like, no, it's a structure that you put in. Like I guess it's like planting food plots was basically what that. Yeah. So I did this and I tried it, man. I'm telling you right now, I had 4 or 5 different bears hit it consistently. I had them pattern. I had deer coming in and hit it all the time. I had to put rocks in the middle of my freaking kiddie pool because the bears would come in and flip my kiddie pool upside down all the time.
Yeah, that would probably be the ticket for bears. I didn't think about it that way, but that if you're able to do that,
well, they're saying like the rut is like a key thing to try. Honestly, I don't know if it'd work in Ohio or not. I'd say try it. I know it works in PA, and
the only
it's
thing
pretty cool. Just put a trail cam on it.
I have the creek right here. There's like a little tributary that comes down through, and then even the bigger creek. Do you think it would still be better?
It doesn't matter, man. I have a creek right in the middle of my property. For some reason, they like it not flowing. They don't like it flowing. It's basically what I got. That they just like the still water is what I basically got the conclusion of. And the only thing that I will say is I didn't think about this. Next year I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna take like screening or something like that and put it on the bottom of my water, like my kiddie pool, so that I can get all the leaves and nasty stuff out of the bottom of it. That's the thing I would say.
Yeah, because otherwise
you can clean it out
by a shovel or something.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I will say for a note is just get something or something. Yeah, like you have the trough, so it'd be easy with you. But I thought I have a pond on my property. I got a creek that runs right through the middle of my property, and I was like, the same exact thing with you. This isn't gonna work. And everybody's like, they like the still water for some reason. It doesn't spook them. I don't know what the reason is why, but it still worked better than the creek or anything like that. I don't know why. It makes no sense to me. It worked.
I'll have to try that. I got a good spot to do it. I mean, especially like along this travel corridor during the rut. I'm sure they get thirsty. It'd probably be a good spot to do it.
Try it, and then consistently, I guess it's like a food plot. They say it's better than a food plot because they're always going to hit it for water like during the rut because they need a drink when they're chasing.
Let's talk about ANF Custom Calls here, Kyle. You want to, I'm sure you got a business spiel. If you want to run through that, and maybe we can send some customers your way.
Yeah. So I started my company back in 2019. I know I touched on it a little bit how it came to be earlier in the show, but I have 3 different lines of calls. I have my Hunter series and my Boss Hen series and my Signature series. The Hunter series and the Boss Hen series, they're both stretched with the same side tension and same back tension. And I offer the same cuts in both. The split V, a bat wing, and a combo cut. And a combo cut's just it's a half a bat wing and a half a split V. Then my Signature series, I like to stretch a little bit tighter. Personal preference, that's what I call better on, is a tighter stretch. I know it's not for a lot of people, but if you want to sound a little bit better, I think the tighter stretch works, at least for me. So that's how I make those calls. And I do have a couple ghost cuts. I have I think it's called the Red Ghost, and then I have the Lost Hen. The Red Ghost has a little thicker latex, whereas the Lost Hen is probably more towards the fall hunter who wants to sound like a lost poult if they're fall hunting. But that's right now is what I have on the lineup. I actually do have a new call, and I have it here with me. I've been working on, and it has that red latex, and it has like a totally different sound than any other calls I have out. But once I want to get it figured out to where I want it to be, and then I'll put it on the website. And then another side note to that, my company is I know I spend a lot of time up in the national forests, and so my company ANF Custom Calls, I donate a portion of the calls of each call sold to the national forest each year.
Oh, that's really cool. I mean, a lot of businesses wouldn't do that, and obviously, it's great to give back to the resource that you utilize. So,
yep,
that's awesome that you do that.
That's something I didn't know, honestly. So that's really cool.
Yep, whether it's trees or whatever we can.
I always thought it was ANF because like Allegheny National Forest, but it's Allen and Friends. That's what I thought.
It's a double entendre, really, because that was like when my buddy Colton and Zach and I were talking about this, trying to start a business. I can't remember. I think it might have been Zach was like, "What about ANF Custom Calls?" And we're like, Allen, and I was like, "What about N Friends?" Allen ANF, acronym for Allegheny National Forest. Like, it was perfect.
So where can we find you at? On Instagram, Facebook?
Instagram, Facebook, ANF Custom Calls, and then www.anfcustomcalls.com is the website where you can buy calls.
Yeah,
and we can also Chad Claycomb has a video series, Claycomb Outdoors. The last 3 years, about halfway through his season, you can catch a few hunts of him and I each year, and my grandpa.
Oh, that's sweet. So, yeah, I'll put all those links in the show notes. And so whoever's listening, if they want to reach out to you or order some calls, they'll definitely have easy access for that. I guess one last question for me is, what do you see, what's your progressive plan for ANF Custom Calls? Are you going to dabble into some pot calls or box calls, or kind of sticking with mouth calls, or whatever you got planned?
I've done mouth calls for so long now, and I think I've got everything pretty much where I need it to be with that. So I do want to start getting into making some box calls, maybe some pot calls. If I got a lathe, I could do some pot calls. But yeah, box calls, I definitely want to start making box calls for sure. I got some T-shirts made. I should have worn one. I'm out in my garage, so it's cold as hell, so I didn't have a T-shirt on, but we got some pretty sweet looking T-shirts. I did a trial run to see what they'd turn out, and they turned out pretty sweet. It's our logo on the back and our ANF logo on the front. So look for those to be on the website here soon too.
Yeah, definitely let me know when those are up. I'll grab one.
I'm definitely gonna grab one too. I liked it. But I just wanted to say thanks for your time and coming on and talking to us for a little bit. And it was good talking to you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and all right, I'm sure we'll have Kyle on here. I don't know, maybe next turkey season, or we'll catch up with you deer season. Whenever you want to come on, we'll have you.
Yeah, guys.
So again, we really appreciate it, and for all you listening, thanks for listening.